All right, recording started. Let's get going. Today we are going to talk about buyer consultations and multiple offer situations. We are still in a pretty demanding market. The inventory is very low, so we're seeing a lot of buyers frustrated getting out there, having to deal with multiple offer situations. And it's our job to navigate that system with them, for them, give them the tools and resources, confidence, and also potentially cry with them when they lose a house. So we're going to go, and it happens. I mean, the crying maybe is a little extreme, but there is a lot of heartbreak, and I do have a tough time with it myself. It's never easy, but I'm going to talk about what it looks like from the beginning to the end and how we can help navigate that situation. And ultimately, I truly, truly believe that everything happens for a reason, and the buyer ultimately finds the right home in the end. And sometimes they even get the house that they lost the multiple offer on because that deal falls apart.
Yes.
It all happens. So everyone, one more minute. If everyone can mute their mic, that'd be great, and I'll get going. Buyer consultations are really important. A lot of times you're going to be meeting this person for the first time, especially if you're doing our training and your outreach and you're working through your sphere and getting referrals. Buyer consultations might be the first time you sit down with this person one-on-one and introduce yourself and learn about them. And it really is exactly that. They're probably there to interview you, and you're there to learn about them. Lots of listening. I cannot stress that enough. Ask questions and be genuinely interested in not only their home search, but who they are as people. We're there to guide them on a journey that hopefully gets them into a home that suits their needs for 7 to 10 years. I've talked about this before, and it is my goal to have buyers get into a home for a minimum of 7 years. Chicago, we know that people outgrow their space. They get a 2-bedroom condo and move into something larger. We're there as their guide. Get to know them, learn who they are in that consultation, and connect with them. That is key. There's a lot of noise in this business, and they're going to see and meet a lot of brokers, whether it's open houses, them hitting the wrong button on Zillow or Redfin, whatever it is. We have to create the connection. So that's our clients. I have never in my many purchase deals signed a buyer representation agreement. Some firms mandate it. We do not. It is, to me, a relationship that is built on trust. And if that buyer isn't confident with my services, then I did something wrong, and they shouldn't or have to work with me. So the fact that there are buyer representation agreements out there, I just don't believe in them. We have to have listing agreements, but we do not have to have buyer representation agreements. So in that first meeting, you're going to educate them on the process. It really is there as a first round of consultation. You're going to explain what it looks like to be a buyer in this marketplace and in general. You're going to explain your services and how you navigate the system. And what that means is education on the MLS. You want to first learn, obviously, their geographic area and their general scope of needs. And I always suggest that people have a broad reach on their first go around for their search, and that's not uncommon. Someone may have a large swath, and that organically kind of shrinks to, a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom condo in Andersonville or a brick ranch in Lake Forest. But they may have started in Deerfield, Highland Park, and then organically shrunk into a neighborhood. Don't have people be super stressed if they have a large reach. Sorry, I gotta pause the music here. That is not uncommon. We are, again, here to help manage the process and give people the confidence. So in your first meeting, you'll let them know that the search gets set up. If they've committed with you, you can share screens and work on the MLS search with them. It's kind of fun. The MLS does have limits because the client cannot edit that search, but you obviously can let them know while you're working through the process that if there are things you want to expand on or contract on during the search process, that's not a problem. We can edit the MLS search. There's a lot of chatter out there about Zenlist. Zenlist is a great tool, but it is not the end all be all. We absolutely, as real estate brokers, should be using the MLS. Zenlist will pick up private listings, but they do not pick up all of the private listings because as a real estate brokerage, we have to allow them to search our private listings and actually the public ones, but almost everyone does that. So all of your clients are going to search online for a home. They are going to use either Zillow, Redfin, Trulia, Realtor.com. If you give them Zenlist as a search tool, it eliminates the noise that Redfin and Zillow have. There are request a showing buttons on all of those websites. And during your consultation, you need to educate the clients. Do not click that button. All of the searches that you're going to have and all of the tours that are set up should be coordinated through me. I am your real estate broker. I'm your advocate in this situation. I'm here to guide the ship. I will coordinate all showings. We'll talk about your search. We will talk about, and I actually educate them on how I'm paid. Full disclosure, I really believe that. And I've been that way from the get-go. You let them know you are here as a free advocate. In Illinois, the seller pays the buyer's commission. That's amazing. You get all of my years of, experience to help guide you through this process. And I don't charge anything. The seller pays my commission. And people appreciate that. They want full disclosure. They are probably sitting here thinking, how the hell do you get paid, Matt? If you don't tell them, they don't know. We all know this because we're inside. But really, the consultation is so important. And I really am a big fan of giving them the ins and outs of the business, including how you're compensated. So back to that MLS search, you'll work through that. Zenlist, happy to talk about that. We do have a corporate rate with them. It does, again, keep them off the noise and keeps them focused on the search and gives them the functionality to search while still seeing private listings and everything that's available publicly. While you're touring homes, it's a little different city and suburb. I know some people do not put people in their car, and I totally respect that. I have had people in my car, and I find it a good way to kind of catch up on the last showing and heading to the next showing. But if you don't put people in your car, I would plan a post-showing recap. And if it's nice enough outside, you can do that after your last property tour. If it's not, schedule a call or a Google Meet and go through each of those properties and talk about the pros and cons. It's going to help you be more efficient on your next search with them. What that means is if they're like, hey, Matt, we want to see 123 Main Street. And you're like, okay, but just so you know, it is very similar to 234 George Street that we saw last week. If you recall, you didn't like that it was sitting on a busy street or didn't have open concept. Why do you think this will be different? Again, we're trying to make everything more efficient for you, for the client. It lets them know. It doesn't let them think that you're being too picky. It lets them know that you're listening to them. It lets them know that you're being cognizant of their wants and needs and helping them, be, again, the best broker for them and an advocate for them. If they're adamant about seeing it, great. We'll always let them know. I'm happy to see it, but challenge them. It lets them know you're thinking about them and their search. It also is going to give you confidence to talk to the client in a teaching or coaching or more authoritative position, which is really who you are. Okay. You have to understand that you are there as an advocate for them, that you've done this before, they have not. As you've toured properties and the buyer is starting to like something, it's exciting. It's also nerve-wracking. Working with a buyer and preparing them to write an offer is something that is, again, a challenge in this market because there are so many properties that are getting multiple offers. I think you have a little bit more time than you did in early 2022 to go home and write that offer. That was like 7 minutes. You do have, an hour or hours to discuss the property, and even overnight we're seeing, and sellers are being a little more patient with timelines. Educating them on what writing an offer looks like. You want to prepare a very detailed CMA. And that is going to help be the foundation of the first phone call of writing the offer. The CMA is going to have like properties in the area. Nothing's exactly the same, but like properties in the area that help Justified pricing for your client. List price is amazing, and we all try to most accurately target list price for our listings, and I know other brokers do as well, most. But you're there to justify the pricing for your client. You want to help them feel like, one, they're not overpaying, two, they're going to be competitive if it is a multiple offer situation, or three, if this list agent is totally out of bounds and has no idea how they price this property and they're just way off bounds. All of that has happened and will happen. So the CMA will help guide you. It will be a talking point for you to say, hey, this is most like this because the year it was built, the finish quality, the square footage, the layout, the lot size, a lot of things to digest. We can go through that on another call. Be prepared to talk about pricing. When you're in a multiple offer situation, you should prepare your first offer with that in mind. That means you're going to have a price that is competitive and gets you to the next round, but isn't your best and final price. Your initial terms should have a mortgage contingency. Your initial terms should have the inspection clause and all of those goodies that protect the buyer, because we don't necessarily know it's going to be a multiple offer situation. So do the best to protect your client, educate them on what all of those terms mean and what they do to protect you throughout the process. Okay. And everyone's going to have an inspection, whether you waive it or not. I strongly suggest that happens. When you do submit your first offer and the listing broker responds with, thank you for your offer, we are in a competitive situation, we're asking for highest and best by Friday at noon, you take your deep breath and you're like, geez, this is a bummer. We worked really hard. I know my client loves this. How do we get it for my client? It's a tough conversation with your client the entire way. I truly, truly believe that when you're in a multiple offer situation, it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't. When you are successful at getting the best, the property, and you are the highest bidder, a lot of times you have that feeling like, did I overpay? And that's a hard pill to swallow. And when you're the buyer and you don't get it, you're like, shit, why didn't we put an extra $1,000 in? Why didn't we put a little more money in? So it's a really hard situation to be in, and you being there for them is really important. So highest and best is called for. Talk to your buyers about what it looks like to waive appraisal. Talk to your client what it looks like to waive inspection, waive mortgage contingency, potentially show a cash offer. That doesn't mean you have to be a cash buyer. That just shows that you are a very strong buyer. If your buyer is buying a $400,000 condo or house and they have $400,000 in their 401k, you could show that as proof of funds and waive mortgage contingency if their financing is 100% bulletproof. And that is a very strong offer. Sellers love when you waive contingencies. And you can waive inspection contingency. That basically says, hey, my buyer is not messing around. Yes, we are still going to do an inspection. And yes, you'll still have an attorney review clause. So if the inspection is a total disaster, you can still bail from that deal and get your earnest money back. But it just shows, again, that you are a confident buyer. You're confident. Your buyer is educated on the process and knows not to nickel and dime during attorney review. Waiving appraisal, we do that often. That just shows that you do have a little reserve money in the tank. You can waive your appraisal. So if the purchase price is $300,000 and the appraisal comes in at $280,000, you're okay covering that delta as the buyer and bringing the additional $20,000 to potentially finance that deal and cover that delta in your 20% down payment or 10, whatever. The relationship with the listing agent is very important. I am not going to say that collusion is always the case, but I can tell you in my history of doing deals that having relationships with listing brokers and being a strong buyer's agent and being a well-known and respected agent in the industry has proven to be beneficial. Your buyer still has to agree to the best terms possible, but there are times when you have a relationship with the listing broker and he's like, hey, you guys put together a really strong package. You've waived the contingencies. We want to work with your buyer, but we have someone that's a little higher. Can you just inch up a little? These things happen. Having relationships is critical. So don't be scared to call the listing broker and let them know that, you've been working with this buyer. They are super strong. They're really interested in this home. They want to figure out a way to work on this with you. Fluff them up a little bit and figure out how and where, if possible, to make the best terms possible. We talked about the damned if you do, damned if you don't. So when you get the call from the listing broker and he's like, congratulations, you are the best candidate. You won this listing. Next steps are XYZ. Just, we need the revised contract. Here's the terms, etc. Let's get this moving because we have 6 other people that want to buy this. Great. Now you have to call your client and be excited, but also let them know that it was a very competitive situation. What I always do is pretty tactful. I'll let the client know that they were the highest bidder, and it wasn't solely based on price. It was based on terms. So that way they feel like, okay, we didn't overpay, which is a really hard situation when you're a buyer. They have to sleep at night whether they are buying this place and getting it at this price or not. And that is how I always lay that out for them when we're writing the offer. But doesn't matter. When you get it, you always have that feeling. So go to your buyer and say, congratulations, you won 123 Main Street. Your terms and price were the best. It was not solely based on price. He said it was extremely competitive. And because you potentially waived the inspection or had your financing at a very strong % down payment, or waived and said you were going to be a cash buyer, that is what moved the needle and got you to the finish line. Those are good calls. The bad calls are the ones where your clients don't win the multiple offer. It is heartbreaking to them because they were envisioning them the next years in that home, and they were obsessing about it, looking at photos, looking at floor plans, watching the virtual tour probably 300 times. It's really hard for them, but I definitely focus on everything happens for a reason. And I really believe that's the case. You can let them know, and maybe they went into this knowing that they weren't going to be the winning bid, but I promise you they still wanted to be the winning bid. Let them know that maybe the terms that they presented weren't the best because XYZ, and let them know that you're here for them. We're excited to get out on the next tour. There's going to be more opportunities. This city and this general area does present similar properties, and maybe show them some of the recent sales that have sold and let them know what inventory might be coming up. It is a hard conversation, but you have to let them know that you're there for them and that everything happens for a reason. You've been down this road before, and clients ultimately end up with exactly what they're looking for. And maintain that relationship. Give them a little breathing room, check in with them a day or two later, and get them back on the horse and get them back showing property. That is the easiest way to heal those wounds, I assure you, because like I said, there's a lot of cool stuff out there. And while that was the best of the best that day, it's not always the end all be all. Okay. So that's kind of my run of what it looks like to be a buyer's agent in this market. It has been challenging. We've had some listings coming up in the office, and I've seen multiple offers and had conversations with brokers and how to deal with that. We'll talk about listing brokers at some point, I'm sure. Also not easy, because I actually do have a really strong moral compass. I actually feel bad when there's 5 buyers that want to buy my one house and you don't have 5 houses. So it's a tricky situation. Any questions or comments on the buyer process and what it looks like?
I just have a comment. Maybe you can elaborate on how or are you seeing listing agents still pricing homes undervalued to get multiple offers? And how do you swallow that pill with your buyers?
It goes back to the CRM. It's the same thing as having a listing broker that prices their home too high. You have to educate the buyer on what market data and what the inventory is compared to previously. I am a big believer that data does not lie. If the market is asking for more money, and sometimes it happens really quickly. In 2022, we were pricing homes and they were going 20, 30 over, not intentional. It was just moving so fast, we didn't see it coming. if people are doing it intentionally, I don't know if they do, Andrea. I personally have not. There are probably agents that do. Sometimes it's just such a fast moving market that, you're at 299 and all of a sudden you sell at 330, 340 because there was so much demand. Education, really just data, data, data. If you're wrong on the first one and things go really crazy and there's 10 offers, it could just be a really fast moving market like early 2022. Or you're right, they could have priced it wrong. It's easier to know if they priced it wrong though, Andrea, versus a fast moving market, because you're just going to be like, hey, this guy just really doesn't know what he's doing. He should have been priced at 349, not 299, and here's why. So I think that's actually the easier of the two versus a fast moving market. But good question. Trust the data. Anybody else?
When you mention waiving the inspection, are you talking about offering as is or actually waiving the inspection?
Good question. You will always have the opportunity to inspect a home, whether you do as is or waive the inspection and put a 0 on the contract. The more professional and more detailed way is to provide an as is rider. Thank you for mentioning that, Kyle. In the as is rider, it actually states that you are going to perform an inspection, but you are buying this property with every intention of as is, meaning you will not nickel and dime the seller. I strongly suggest you use the as is. Good call, Kyle.
Okay. I have a quick question. When you say using the addendum is not like on the 7.0 or 7.1 contract, is that not enough? Do you have
enough? Amani, you're 100% right. We often use the 4-page, but if you're using the 13-page, I believe, 7.0 rider, there are as is terms on there.
Okay.
You can use that absolutely more than enough and articulate that in your email to the listing broker. I love sending my offer to the listing broker from my email with a proper PDF attachment of the contract, the disclosures, the pre-approval and or proof of funds. My email also states, thank you for showing the property. We appreciate your time and effort. We know this is a competitive market. Here's a quick blurb about my client, and here are the 6 bullets summarizing my client's terms: price, earnest money, contingencies, close date. Don't make them go digging through the contract to find that information. Do their job for them. Put together the best package possible to show that you are the most professional, organized person out there. Dave mentioned it in one of his calls. If your contract is not complete, meaning you don't have the lawyer, you don't have the mortgage broker on there, and you don't have all of your information, you should fill out the listing broker's information. It auto-populates for MLS. Put together a complete contract, look professional, summarize in your email. It's gonna put your offer on the top of the deck, especially if it's hyper competitive and you're in the top 2 or 3 and they come back to you. You're gonna be able to tell them, hey, I've been doing this a long time. I work at Mark Allen Realty. Look at our reviews. We know what we're doing. We're going to get this to the finish line. And ultimately, that's what the sellers want.
What do you think about sometimes in trying to find a way to distinguish yourself? I've before written a little, maybe something that was a little heartstringy or something that kind of introduces the seller just a little bit to differentiate my buyer from someone else. If there's I don't know, extenuating circumstances to why this house is special for them.
Sure.
Have you done that before? Do you find that has impact, or do you think that it doesn't?
Sure. So there are love letters out there that clients write, and that is not uncommon. There is now the chatter that it is a fair housing violation. So you have to be careful about what you're writing and what you're presenting. There are check marks on the listing agreement now that state I will not accept love letters from clients. If you're writing a quick summary in an email, be careful what you're writing. Again, we are governed by fair housing and it is very serious. So yes, you can tell them why you love the home and maybe they grew up in the neighborhood and things like that. Sure. It definitely mentions some things that would connect them to the home. I think ultimately price is always the leader. Terms, financing conditions are going to really move the needle when you're talking about what gets these buyers the property, but doesn't hurt to tug at the heartstrings.
Thanks.
Anything else today?
You know, Matt, I'd love to open it up to people to get ideas and topics for the next upcoming calls that we have.
Yeah, feel free to hit it on the chat if you want. If you're not open to verbalizing that, we are always, looking for topics, and I feel like I'm ready for all of them. So fire away. Did anyone schedule a coffee with any lead source or potential client? I really think that's going to get you guys in front of people that make your business stand out and give you that leg up when you're the referring agent. So don't be shy. Start reaching out to people. Okay. Keep up on your training, both on our site and throughout the industry, talking and collaborating with other brokers that you see, even if it's at an open house or another showing. Build relationships, build relationships, build relationships. It honestly pays dividends. Okay. And that's kind of relevant in this topic. So when you're out there, it's a small world. Okay. A lot of people know who we are, but it's nice to have that personal touch. Okay. If there's nothing else, I feel like this was a good one, and I appreciate you guys all for joining. I will be reaching out to each one of you and see what's happening for the week, and hopefully you're staying busy.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Hey, real quick,
Yep.
for next week possibly, could we go over maybe how to convert leads from open houses?
We can, definitely. We'll put it on our topic list. Yeah, that's something that it's not easy.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times people from open houses have a broker they're working with and they're just sent there. I always encourage my buyers to definitely visit open houses. It helps kind of keep us, out of their peripherals from when they're just kind of building their search parameters. But yes, we definitely could talk about that and some other topics about how to convert buyers for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I had a situation at an open house last week. Couple came through. I've been following up with them, and they've been, hinting that they would possibly be working with me. And I just talked to them yesterday again. And then last night they submitted an offer on one of my wife's listings with somebody else. So,
Oh,
I'll tell you what, Kyle, a lot of that, it might not have been that they had a relationship with the broker they're working with. They may have been on Zillow, hit a button, and someone showed them the property. So
right.
You need to get to the bottom of that and give them a call. And again, this all goes back to the beginning of this conversation. Get them in person, get a buying consultation scheduled, help educate them on the process. Buyers do not know what it means to be a real estate broker. They don't know that we're there to represent them exclusively. Help them in their search. This is how we make a living. And we are going to give them all of our education, information, get them the best price, help them navigate the system. Right now, that person might not have a relationship with them. So we'll take this offline, Kyle. I'm actually curious about this.
All right.
All right.
Yep.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
thank you.